it's very possible that we have a super intelligence here in 2, 3, 4 years that's maybe 1,000 times smarter than us. That is a huge existential risk. So we need to win the AI race. It's like there's an imperative. So we have promised one robot for every household in California. Not to scare your listeners, but I can't say this enough.
Welcome to the revolution, okay, where we're trying to create a situation where we can get our government back from the donor class. Well, we're interviewing some interesting folks here, and they all have their different ways of doing that revolution. And joining me today is Zoltan Istvan. He's running for governor of California, and he has a bold agenda. So I want to hear about it, and I want to see if that's the way to go. And this governor's race is all of a sudden wide open. So Zoltan, welcome to the show. How you doing, brother?
Great, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So you're running as an independent?
No, I'm actually running as a Democrat. Definitely a Democrat this time.
Oh, this time a Democrat, okay. So, and obviously it's a little hard to win if you're not a Democrat in California, right? That makes a difference?
That's the main thing, but let me just say, I'm not really too much of a party person. I just believe in trying to govern and do the best for the people.
Yeah, how dare you? You founded the Transhumanist Party. So talk to me about that. What is that, and what sports should you guys be allowed to play?
Sure. Well, transhumanism is a social movement now of many millions of people around the world that want to use radical technology to alter the human body, alter the human experience. And the Transhumanist Party was started as a science political party in 2014 when I was running for the US presidency there. I was their nominated candidate. And honestly, we never had a shot of winning, but we wanted to send out a message. And that message was that science and technology are wonderful conductors of politics. And if you can use them properly, you can actually change the way people live for the better. And we were trying to make candidates talk about AI, genetic engineering, things like that. That's really what that presidential candidacy was about, as well as the Transhumanist Party. But however, I'm now running as a Democrat, middle of the road, centric in the Bill Clinton style. So it's quite a long time from 10 years ago.
Okay, I hear you on that, but it's interesting. So I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions and then we'll get to what you're doing these days. So it says that the party's animated by reason, science, and secular values. So that sounds pretty good. I like secular values, I like science and reason, I love that in fact. And then it wanted to reduce and eliminate various existential risks to the human species. So what are those risks? And it leads naturally into this particular run now you have for governor. Like, are you worried about AI or are you excited about AI? So talk to me about how technology is interacting with not just the human species, but our economy and everything else that's going on now.
Sure, and just to be honest, I uphold most of the values I had 10 years ago. I'm pretty much the same guy. And when I'm running a campaign, I like to think of it as I'm running on the scientific method. This idea that you test a bunch of ideas and the one that works is the best. But those ideas can change. And I think as you've noticed, society, the world, America, California, it's all changing. And so we need a politician that's able to adjust. And I hope I can be that person that adjusts. But let's say, take what you said with existential risk. Existential risk is the idea that an asteroid might hit the planet. 10 years ago, we didn't have much funding for it. We have a little bit more now. Or artificial intelligence, a super intelligence. I just finished my graduate degree at the University of Oxford, specializing in AI ethics. I mean, it's very possible that we have a super intelligence here in 2, 3, 4 years that's maybe 1,000 times smarter than us. That is a huge existential risk. So transhumanism tries to address a lot of those issues. And I'm also trying to address some of those issues in my gubernatorial run.
Yeah, all right, so let's do it. Let's talk about AI as a particular case. I mean, California is the very, very center of it. So if you were governor, would you relax the regulations? Would you make the regulations tighter? What would you do?
Well, regarding AI, I would probably relax any regulations. The thing is, we need to beat the Chinese. However, when it comes to superintelligence, then I might be a bit more cautious. But look, the Chinese, the Russians, other countries around the world are racing to create artificial intelligence. And if they create the first AGI or intelligence that's equal to us, that'll be hugely damaging. And the reason is because eventually they get to an AI that's so smart, they tell that AI, send viruses all across America, and our traffic lights don't work, our natural gas doesn't work, our water doesn't come out of our pipes. So we need to win the AI race. It's like there's an imperative to doing this. And I think in that sense, lessening regulation in the AI world is important for Americans so that we can make sure we win that race. That said, when it comes to once we've won it, we need to be really careful that all of a sudden, we don't create a super intelligence that somehow creates a dark world for us. Maybe it's too smart, maybe it's Terminator-like. I mean, that's where it gets dangerous. And the futurist in me can go on all day about those kinds of things. But the gubernatorial candidate doesn't really bring up super intelligence in the race. It polls terribly, even if it's a real issue.
Okay, I got to keep asking because you say these interesting things. I have to confess that I don't know the difference between AI and super intelligence. Help me understand that.
Sure, and AI is what we have now, like ChatGPT, and then there's AGI, artificial general intelligence. That's intelligence that's equal to you and I. And then there's super intelligence, something that would be classified as at least 10 times smarter than Albert Einstein, for example, or something like that, or the smartest person on the planet. And I was recently at a party in a mansion in San Francisco overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. And it was crazy. It was like 80 people there. They invited many of the AI experts around the world, as well as a lot of programmers from ChatGPT and Microsoft and everywhere. And virtually everyone believed that the AI superintelligence was going to be here within 2 to 3, at the most 4 years. And again, I can't, not to scare your listeners, but I can't say this enough. If there's something out there that's smarter than us, it's almost like inviting aliens to planet Earth. Humans would never invite aliens that are more powerful than us to planet Earth, because game theory would suggest there's a 50-50 shot that they might destroy us. So this presents a huge problem for us. And this is exactly what we're doing by creating superintelligence. So yes, on one hand, we need to win the race to AI because we don't want a totalitarian government like China holding all the cards. But at the same time, we're almost on the Titanic, all of us, this sinking ship bound to hit an iceberg. And then we're gonna rush to it and create the superintelligence, which might also end us. It's a catch-22. I'm not sure which is the worst path. It would be best to say, let's just stop the development of AI altogether. But this is impossible. Even if China and Russia and Americans didn't create a superintelligence, maybe some hackers in their lab would eventually have the technology to do so. So at some point, America needs to lead with this and try to hope that it turns out for the best.
So Zoltan, I'm gonna go on to the rest of your platform because it's important, but I've got to ask one last question about this, which is, you mentioned winning that AI race, and that immediately made me panic, and I'll tell you why. Because what does it mean to win it? Because it's like, let's say that we got the upper hand on the Chinese and the North Koreans and whoever else, right? Then it made me think, the minute we get the upper hand or they get the upper hand, they're gonna wanna attack our AI because they're gonna want sole control. They're not gonna want the other country or competing entity to then outdo them a week later or a year later. So are we going to have the AI war soon?
Well, so let me just tell you again, this is not my platform at all. This is just some of the stuff I studied at Oxford. There's a very high likelihood, game theory again, that we would have to have a world war to figure out who ends up with the dominant AI technology. And a lot of people have said that some of the warmongering going on, again, I'm not saying this is me, I'm just outlaying this as an Oxford scholar, that somebody has to win the AI race and then dominate the rest of the planet and say you can either use this type of AI or no AI at all. And this type of AI would be an AI that we approve, like, for example, the US military approves. But I would not be surprised if within 18 months, 24 months, you have military overriding Google headquarters, OpenAI headquarters. I mean, this is a military operation at this point. AI has become so powerful already with drones capabilities, autonomous jets and things like that, that we're talking about an entire new era of what it means to even be a country in the age of AI. And so again, I know I throw out a lot of things at you, and that's kind of all crazy. But I'm just saying that game theory would suggest that one country must win the AI race, and therefore make sure that every other country uses that technology, and somehow that technology hopefully remains in the hands of the one country that started it.
Okay, we're all doomed. And no, it's not crazy. It's important and it's happening, and at least you know about it. And Zoltan went to Columbia before he went to Oxford. That used to be a point of pride because I went to Columbia Law too. But these days, Columbia caving to Trump and being against free speech has kind of robbed us of that. But at least you studied at Oxford and got all this good information you can share with us. Okay, so now your platform. Before we do anything else on that, do you take corporate PAC money?
Oh, absolutely not. We take no money from except from grassroots people like yourself, just people that are on the ground. That's it. We don't take money from anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay. God bless. So I assume, of course, no AIPAC money, no Israeli lobby money.
No Israeli lobby money, no AIPAC money, no money from any kind of groups. We have only taken individual money from individual human beings.
Okay. So now to California. What's at the top of your agenda?
Well, so we also believe that AI can be a wonderful thing. And I have followed, to some extent, in the vein of Andrew Yang, supporting a universal basic income. So we're now supporting what we call an automated abundance economy. This is the main part of my platform. And the automated abundance economy consists of three different things. The first is the support of a universal basic income. And the reason is because, as you can imagine, if we have an AI as smart as us in 1 to 2 to 3 years, obviously they're gonna make robots. These robots will be as agile as Olympians. They'll be as smart as us. They're gonna take every job that's out there. So that's incredibly dangerous for the workforce. And those that argue against this are probably not seeing the big picture. I think all of us over a 5 to 10 year period have a very strong likelihood of losing our livelihoods. So what do? Well, we support a universal basic income. And this is what I'm pushing as my, day one I get into California, I'm gonna establish this and try to establish a livable universal basic income. But number two is it's not just about robots taking over and our jobs and stuff like that. It's actually about us using robots successfully to make our lives more leisurely. So we have promised one robot for every household in California, and to either lease or to give them by 2-3 years time, robots that can do chores like cook salmon for you, do your laundry, walk your dog, read a book to your children. They're probably only gonna be $5,000 or $6,000 in cost. So we can give all the 13 million households in California one. And that will make life a lot easier. You and I probably do approximately 5 to 10 hours of chores a week. So if you have a robot doing that, you save a lot of time. And the third part of the automated abundance economy is really trying to reestablish what the American dream is and the Californian dream. The American dream is this idea you can work hard and become a millionaire and make riches. Of course, being a millionaire doesn't count as being wealthy anymore. But the point is, we need to reimagine that entire scope. If you're not working, if you're not laboring, if you're not in the grind, 9 to 5, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm not here to tell people what to do, but I think the age of space industry, Star Trek, being an artist, making painting, taking a guitar, learning the guitar in the Bahamas, whatever it is, the age of automation could become something very brilliant for human beings. And I think that's what I'm pushing. I'm pushing for us to do something new with the American dream. It's not about money anymore. It's about quality of life.
But Zoltan, I'm super worried about the interregnum because you're painting a beautiful picture of the potential future, the abundance economy, and we're the Jetsons, and we got these robots, and they're cooking our salmon for us, and that's beautiful. And I hope to God you're right, and I hope we get there instead of a disaster. But what I'm positive of is that that's not going to be the first thing that happens. The first thing that happens is going to be a massive wipeout of jobs. Now, across the country, across the world, but certainly in California as well, and maybe most in California, since we're the epicenter of this technology. So we're gonna lose, bare minimum 10% of the jobs in America, maybe 25%. And that first 10% could be lightning quick. So what happens when we have this massive unemployment and we haven't gotten to the Jetsons yet? We don't have the robot or the salmon. What do we do in the middle?
Well, that's the $1 million question really, is how quickly do we get there? But I think, Cenk, really, we're going to get there a lot more quickly. I mean, there are already robots now in California houses. Yes, some of them are being done by avatars, but probably in 2 to 3 months they won't be. And they'll already be folding clothes, and probably by early next year they will be cooking your salmon. So there is this. People like to think there's going to be a big disruption, but I think it's coming a lot more quickly, almost like ChatGPT came. It was like almost overnight. And I've been a journalist for 20, 30 years, written for National Geographic, written as a correspondent for the New York Times. And it's amazing. You can just tell this thing to write articles for you, and it does it better than I probably ever could have written in my life. And that happened almost overnight in a matter of 3 to 6 months. I think the same thing is going to happen here. You're already seeing a plateau of jobs in Silicon Valley and some firings, but I think starting early next year, you're going to see a mass cliff. We're just right off, and I think once that happens, people are really going to wake up, and it's going to happen right as the gubernatorial race in California is starting to get exciting, and people are going to say, well, what are you going to do about this? And I just think it's going to come a lot quicker than people realize. That's the nature of capitalism and technology. And again, it makes you question whether capitalism is a good thing as well now.
So is your plan basically universal basic income? So when the mass layoffs begin, people can go and get at least some income so they're not starving in the streets, et cetera, while we figure out the rest?
Yeah, so universal basic income is definitely our core part of our plan. But we also have an idea of trying to build 7 new super cities across California. And that would hopefully, so one of the problems here, and I'm in real estate development, is how I've kind of kept alive. Journalism didn't pay very well, but the real estate did do well. And it's become impossible to build in California. I mean, to try it in LA or San Francisco is nearly impossible, but our plan is to build these super cities way outside the urban centers, maybe 100 miles outside, near the Salton Sea, where there's no, just desert, things like that, or maybe some of the coastal areas, if we can get past the Coastal Commission, to build these 1 million-person super cities and dedicate each one of these cities to something, like one for the space industry, one for crypto, maybe one for entertainment and media, maybe one for the arts and music and things like that. But the point is that in addition to universal basic income, we have a method to create a lot of affordable housing. And that's to build away from the counties that have already upheld NIMBYism. So NIMBYism, so your listeners know, is that not in my backyard. And the problem with NIMBYism is that it's so dominant in the major urban centers in California that you need to go outside the counties that don't have urban centers. But if you do, you can build very cheaply. And plus, there's a lot of state land. Maybe in my gubernatorial, if I was governor, I would end up giving state land for these super cities for free. So the point is, there are plenty of ways to build affordable housing in California, but you can't do it in San Francisco or Los Angeles or in existing urban centers. So that's one of the main things that we want to do outside of our universal basic income. And if we did that, we would take all the homeless and give them their own studios or apartments where they can live, and a lot better services, so that you wouldn't have homeless in California anymore.
Okay, lots to ask about that, because you've got a unique platform here. So where are we getting money for the universal basic income or the 7 new cities?
So the universal basic income is, of course, the tricky one, because that's the most expensive part of it. We have something called the federal land dividend. So about 600 million acres in the United States is actually empty land. About 40 million in California is empty federal land. Most of it is not used. My plan would not touch state or national parks whatsoever, but we want to monetize a lot of that federal and state land to produce an income. And if we could do it, and that might be through selling through corporations or selling through wealthy people that might want to do that, we could then come up with probably enough money for at least half the basic income. And we were thinking, right now, a basic income of something like $1,300 or $1,400 would be our ideal in California. Again, it's not going to necessarily change or push people out of, let's say, poverty, but it's going to at least give them food, shelter, and hopefully housing, hopefully healthcare that they can get their own on the market and things like that. Because of course, nobody can afford these things if you're below like 20, 30% of Californians right now in the poverty line. But if we can do that, then we would like to, but that's just the first. I mean, Andrew Yang wants to use, for example, a VAT where there'd be some additional taxes. I'm not too big on trying to tax people for the universal basic income, but what I could do is maybe tax crypto exchanges. There's a lot of transactions that's going there, and maybe there could be some increase in taxes elsewhere. But however we do it, there's plenty enough way to do it. I mean, probably taxing the robots is the one that most people are going to want to do. I mean, after all, they're taking the jobs away from human beings. And I'm definitely up for discussing that. But however we do it, I find that there's a myriad amount of ways to support a universal basic income in California. And just, also all the way across America. You just got to think outside the box. Now, the super cities is different. I mean, if the developers know that they can make money, they're going to come and provide their own money. They're just going to need loans, bonds, and things like that. So super cities can pay for themselves. Real estate is always paid for itself. It's a great investment, just not in San Francisco or in the urban areas in California. You got to get into the counties where you can kind of create your own sets of regulation. And those regulations are going to be dramatically cheaper than what we have, for example, here where I live in Marin County, where you can't even build a fence anymore.
Okay, so quick questions, a series of them. You said $1,300, that's per month in a relatively ideal universal basic income. Okay, so yeah, boy, we're gonna head to disaster. Okay, corporate, I don't mean in your platform, I mean overall in AI, because even if you have $1,300 a month, but you don't have your job anymore, oh my God, we're gonna be devastated. Okay,
but just there would be what already exists with the welfare system. So those that are getting maybe 20,000 from it are now getting an additional 15,000. So you're literally doubling, pretty close to what these people have. And let me just say again, the automated abundance economy includes a lot of use of new technology. So if we can follow through with our plan and we're able to give, let's say in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, a humanoid robot that does a lot of tasks for you. Again, it reduces the kind of time that you might have to drive your kids here or do there or cook for you. You have to see the automated abundance economy is not necessarily only about dollars. It's really about quality of life. If you did have something like that helping you, plus this basic income, your life could be dramatically improved. We see standard of living increasing by 30, 40, 50% across the board, according to our metrics.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. And I think that there's going to be mass devastation before we get to that, if we ever get to Elysium. But okay, so let me keep going. The corporations, what are they doing with state land? Are they sponsoring it? Are they buying it? You said not buying it, so I was confused by that.
No, well, we would love to lease the land so that corporations would actually be paying you per month. And that money would be directly funding a lot of the universal basic income. So for example, if a super city was to take 10 square miles of the state land, they would be paying for that and then probably paying some of the taxes and things like that on the different units that they create, housing units, things like that. So the numbers are tight. I'm not trying to paint this as we have it all figured out. But I can tell you one thing, it's a better plan than what exists right now, which is this idea, for example, in San Francisco, they just passed a new real estate law today, and now they can build a little bit higher. But just because they can build higher doesn't mean developers are gonna go in and deal with all the environmental regulations and things like that. You really need to get outside of that. So our plan actually works for a real estate developer like myself to go in and say, I can make a living doing this. Right now, you can't make a living building in San Francisco or Los Angeles anymore. It's very difficult.
So I want the audience to understand, look, AI, universal basic income, et cetera, are not Zoltan's fault. He's at least trying to figure out how to deal with it, right? And whereas a lot of the other candidates are out to lunch and they don't even know that it's happening, right? Or don't have an effective plan for it, in my opinion. All right, so you mentioned maybe taxing the robots. I'm like, okay, now we're having a conversation. Because if NVIDIA and all these AI companies, et cetera, OpenAI are now they're worth $1 trillion, they're amazing, they're terrific. All right, great. If you're the ones that destroyed our economy and you made $1 trillion from it, give me the goddamn money. So can we tax them a lot more than other companies? Because those are the companies that destroyed employment in this country.
So, Cenk, we just have to be careful. Going back to this artificial intelligence race to superintelligence, we have to be careful. And just so you know, and I'm not trying to hide it, but I am sort of one of the most right-leaning of the left sided gubernatorial candidates. That said, of course, I support basic income, so there's a strong socialist component of my campaign as well. but I also don't want to alienate my people that have been with me for 10, 15, 20 years as somebody they believe in. So I'm trying not to create more taxes on those that are creating these technologies. However, as I said before, if it comes down to I have to do one or the other, absolutely. Let's tax the hell out of the big multi-trillion-dollar companies that are creating the robots and the AI. If I have to do it, I absolutely will do it for the people. My priority is to I was just in Los Angeles. I interviewed 33 people. 7 out of 10 people said housing affordability is their number one issue. They just said it's money, money, money. That's all that matters to them. In fact, on the top 10 list was not environmentalism even once for any of the top 33, for the 33 people I interviewed. So for me, I'm just like, how can I make your life cheaper and better? What can I do to give you enough security and financial freedom so that you don't come, when I interview you, you don't say to me, look, I can't afford even going to the store anymore. So if it means taxing those corporations, yeah, I'm with you, let's do it.
Okay, and then one more on the super cities. So people have tried, new cities before, even in California, as you know, right? And they've been pretty spectacular failures. So have we learned any of the lessons from those? Why would we think it would work this time? Plus, whenever we say, oh, we're gonna build new housing, if you don't put in absolute requirements, they usually don't build affordable housing. They build, logically, more profitable housing, right? And so then you didn't solve the homeless problem at all. So how do you deal with those two significant issues?
Well, Cenk, you have to be reasonable. You have to try to work with both sides. And I think this is one of the things I'm seeing in some of the other candidates, or even Gavin Newsom. He doesn't seem to want to compromise at all. And I'm the kind of person that reaches across the aisle and says, listen, how can we make this better? If I have to work with Trump, who I'm not a fan of, then I will do so because I'm doing it for the people. So if it means making something more affordable and building these super cities, I would absolutely do whatever it takes to make that work. But I think the bigger problem here is that right now, when you talk about building and regulations, it's almost impossible in the framework of the urban centers we live in California. You need to go somewhere else. You need to, create city councils that will vote into certain kinds of building parameters that will work. And yes, we want the developers to make money. That's why no one's building in San Francisco anymore. It's because they can't make any money. So we need to entice them somewhat. And that means compromise. And I know I'm not a big showy guy. I'm not out there, railing all day long against Trump. But whatever it takes, if I can make Californians have more affordable housing, I'm going to do that. That's my number one goal.
All right, super interesting. Certainly a different candidate, and your top two priorities are very different than the others. But you're addressing housing, affordability, AI. These things are real, very, very real, and very relevant. I enjoy the conversation. We had a conversation just like this with a guy named Andrew Yang a long time ago. Then he wound up being, a very interesting presidential contender, and on and on and on. So Zoltan, last things, how can people find you?
Sure. Well, I would love for you to go to my website, zoltanistvan2026.com. And of course, if anyone wants to donate, we're very happy to take them. And I'm just doing my best out here. We want to change the conversation in California. We want to build the Golden State back, and we can do it. We just need some reasonable candidates out there like myself that are going to push something that all of us can believe in again.
All right. Oh, I almost forgot. We're on yes, we're doing an interview for your race. Yes, it's also the conversation when we do these interviews. But also at this time, the original conceit of this show is the revolution. So I ask everybody that comes on here, what's your sense of what is most wrong in our government, and how would you do a revolution to fix it? And a revolution can mean anything. It certainly is not physical or violent, obviously political, etc.
Well, look, the revolution that's happening, and I'm so grateful that you had me on your show, is really about AI. None of the politicians will talk about it because it doesn't poll well. And anytime I talk about it outside, people are like, oh, can you talk about taxes or immigration or something like that? And that's something they understand. This is a weird world we're in. We're faced with 18 to 24, 36 months, something on planet Earth that's as smart as us, as agile as us, that can take our jobs away. And if we don't do something, we don't take that power away from the corporations, we don't take the power away from the politicians that exist now, we're gonna end up, it's not gonna be good for the people. So the revolution that you're talking about really has to start with us acknowledging that the world is changing in a way that has never happened before. AI is not like the internet. AI is not like the combustion engine. It's something that can replace us. So we have to be very, very careful how we go about it. And talking about it is the first priority of any steps that we're going to take. So that's my revolution. It's just, let's talk about it.
All right, Zoltan, appreciate it, brother. Thank you for joining us. Super interesting candidate for governor in California, and a race that needs interesting candidates. All right, thank you.
Thank you.